now. So basically the overall message is that we have to remember everything is a vibrational state of being. Okay. So that is, insert whatever your word is. Home is a vibrational state of being. Love is a vibrational state of being. Abundance is a vibrational state of being. Prosperity is a vibrational state of being. Like, you can put any word there that you want. And just know that this message that I'm bringing right now is not going to be like a complete, like, end all be all message. This is just like an idea and an overview of the process of awakening. But the big message is that it's all about being in the vibrational state of whatever it is that you want. Okay. Now, that being said, with everything going on out in the world and everything going on the news and social media, you have to be a good steward of your own vibration. Okay. So they're wanting me to bring a message about the process of awakening and what that means and how to learn to be in that vibrational state. Okay. So again, this is just going to be an overview because this is something that can take years to understand, years to learn. But I feel like there's so many people right now waking up, that I felt like I had to just bring this message right now. So wherever you're at in this journey, like, don't feel like you're behind, or don't feel like somebody else is better than you or further along than you or anything like that. Just wherever you are in your spiritual journey is exactly where you're supposed to be. And you've got to let go of, what everybody else is doing. Okay. Okay. So what I'm going to do is kind of take you through the process of awakening, and then we'll circle back to understanding the idea that of everything we want, whatever that is, whatever the feeling is that we want, whatever, the state of abundance or whatever it is a vibrational state of being. Okay. So have that in the back of your mind, knowing that everything you want to experience is a vibrational state of being. And then I'm going to take you through right now the process of awakening, so that you can learn how to then be in that vibrational state. Okay. So as you go through an awakening, and again, you guys, this is just kind of an overview. An overview of how the process kind of goes. Okay. So in the very beginning, whenever you start to awaken onto your spiritual journey, most generally what I find, or what I have noticed with the clients that I work with, is like, you go on this idea of soul searching and you just feel like something is missing, and you may not even know what that thing is. Like, you may not even know why you feel like something's missing. You may not really know, like, you want to do soul searching, but you're not even really sure what you're searching for. So if you're in that state where you're just like, God, I just feel like there's something more, there's something I should be doing, there's something that I'm missing. I just feel like I need to find something, or find myself, or, whatever that is. It can show up in so many different ways, right? So it's just that feeling of, okay, there's got to be more, something's missing. Or you really get in that space where you're like, okay, I really have to do some soul searching because I'm ready for something new in my life. Now, again, you guys remember, like I said in my first book, Embodied Grace, A Woman's Path to Empowerment, like, literally, it could just be like this little inkling that you're supposed to be doing more with life, or you feel like you're stuck, or you need to find your purpose or your passion, right? And what's interesting about that is sometimes we feel guilty about it. Like, I totally felt guilty that I wanted more, because from what the quote unquote American dream is, right? Or like the ideas of what we think we want in life, it looked like I had that. I'm married, I have kids, I have, the car, the house, all of those kind of things, which I don't have the house anymore because we sold it, and we live in a fifth wheel now, and we travel. So which of course back then I would have never even thought that was on the plate, but that's kind of besides the point. So coming back to that, it's like, there's just something missing. You've got an inkling that something is calling you, and you just aren't sure like where to even start, right? So what'll happen next is, once you're like, okay, once you decide, okay, I'm going to do whatever it takes to find whatever this is. Okay. So again, if we go back to that book, the very first book I wrote, you guys, and know that everything that's come through has not been for me. Even the first book, like the 5 Steps to Embodied Grace, and the whole first book, Embodied Grace, all of the books that I've written, the journal, everything has been what my angels and guides have shown me or inspired me, or basically I channeled. Like, they're like, okay, you're going to do this. And I'm like, wait, what? Right? So the biggest thing you've got to know is, the first thing you've got to do is decide. So if you're in this space of, okay, something's missing, I'm just going to decide that I'm going to try to find what I'm missing inside. And so I'm going to be open to it, right? So deciding is the first thing. And then what's going to happen from there is you'll probably naturally, if you're in that state and you're asking God, okay, show me what's next. Like, show me where I can learn. Show me what I feel like is missing. Help me see what I need to do to get on this path, right? Because again, there's an inkling of something that you're being called to, even though you may not know what it is, right? So generally what'll happen is then you'll naturally be brought to some teachings on boundaries or codependency, right? Like, okay, where do I need to be responsible for myself? Where am I letting others drain my energy? Why am I doing things that don't fulfill me? All of that's going to come in around the boundaries area, where you're going to start learning your own personal boundaries. It's really important in this space, when you start learning that, to learn how to bubble your energy, okay? Now, right now in 2020, that's a little harder than it was when I was teaching it 3 years ago, because the energy is so much different. We've been through so many ascension shifts. There's a lot going on, but you still need to learn how to be in the bubble of your own energy. And depending on where you're at, like if you're just starting, this may not be as hard as somebody who's been on the journey, but you're being called to the next level, okay? But wherever you're at, you need to understand, what is my energy and what is somebody else's. So for those of you guys that have heard me like more than once, you've also heard me talk about bringing in divine light. So you would pray and ask God, okay, God, I'm asking for Jesus and the angels to come in now, surround me with divine light. You bring that light in through your like the top of your head, the crown of your head, and all the way down through your feet. And then once you bring the energy down to your feet, you root into the earth, and then the energy kind of blends, and you bring that back into your heart. And then from your heart, you expand that into a bigger bubble, to where you're literally in a divine bubble of light. And this helps you understand what is yours and what's somebody else's. Okay. The interesting thing is, when you start working on understanding boundaries, which is what is mine and what is somebody else's, you also figure out and learn, and you start to discover where you've been blaming others for what's showing up in your life. Okay. Now, this is when you get to that point, when you're looking at boundaries and codependency, and you realize, okay, wait, I'm putting the power onto somebody else because I'm saying it's their fault I haven't done XYZ, right? When you learn to bubble, you start to get really clear on what's your own stuff, right? Which is where negative beliefs come in, or limiting beliefs, or negative patterns, or the paradigms and programs that you've been raised in. Like, all of those things start to show themselves, which then leads you into doing your own spiritual work, right? So when you start doing your own spiritual work, then you start growing and expanding your own understanding of yourself, of knowing that there is something more out there that's helping us. And you start really kind of reconnecting to your own soul. You start connecting to that divine spark that is within all of us, right? God has given all of us a divine spark. And so what happens is, as you start to reconnect your soul, you start on your awakening. Like, that's what really begins your spiritual awakening. And what happens in this space is, then you start, okay, you see where you have wounds, right? So you start healing. You start healing. There's so many different teachers that call it so many different things. So you start healing your inner self. You start healing the limiting beliefs. You start healing the negative patterns. Like, there's a lot of healing in the beginning. So as you start healing your wounds, you'll start to get more and more clear. And I've got to tell you, in that space, the biggest thing you can do is forgiveness. If you think you're healing, but you haven't done forgiveness, you need to go back and do the healing, because forgiveness is really where that is. And what happens is, as you start forgiving, you're able to detach a little bit from what has happened, and you start to heal it, and you literally let it go. Like, when you turn that over to God and you let the forgiveness happen and you let the healing happen, then you're not holding on to it anymore. So the whole idea of forgive and forget, like a lot of times we'll say, well, I'll forgive, but I'm never going to forget. If you don't allow that to be literally healed and taken, if you're holding on to it and you haven't forgotten, it's still taking up space. So part of the healing is in the forgetting. And it's not that you're forgetting the lesson. It's not that you're forgetting anything that was valuable to you in that, because some of our biggest wounds are also our biggest lessons, right? So we may have learned really good boundaries there. We may have learned self-love in something horrible, right? So you take whatever is valuable and you take that with you. But when you forgive truly, then you really do let go of and detach from that energy. And you have to if you want to go on to the next level, because you can't vibrate at abundance if you're holding on to lack. And if you're not forgetting about something, and I know that's not really the right word, but if you're not letting it go and you're holding on to it, you can't hold on to lack in one hand and be angry with somebody and be blaming somebody while you're reaching for abundance. It's too far of a vibrational gap. Okay, so you really have to be all in on the healing and the forgiveness. Okay, as you do that, once you get through some of the forgiveness work, now, I'm just going to say this now, the healing and the forgiveness is like onion layers. So as you go through these stages, you're going to find more to heal, more to forgive, more to release. And that's perfectly fine. But in the beginning, it's like you do this bulk of it. Like you do these really hard, like, let's get rid of some of the really stuff that's really at the forefront that you really need to let go of and you need to heal. So from there, once you start doing that work, then it's like you start to understand what the word paradigm means. You start to understand paradigms, programs, patterns, like things that you just do that you don't know why you do. That's what the paradigms, programs, and patterns are all about. Like it's the patterns that you've learned from your family. It's the programming that you have from society, like whatever it is. And again, you guys, not in a place of blame, but in a place of, oh, okay, now I understand this. So basically, when you're looking at that, it's so paradigms, programs, patterns. Again, those words are kind of interchangeable, but it's just like a set of things that you have accepted, like assumptions or concepts, values, anything that you've really learned, whether that be from your family or from your community or from repetitive behavior that you've done, right? So when you start to understand the idea of the patterns, paradigms, and programs, then you really learn to become aware of every single thought you have, okay? And when you become aware of your thoughts, then you can see that the whole idea of thoughts becomes things. Like we've heard that phrase thrown out a lot, right? But what happens is when you understand the paradigms, programs, patterns, you can then really become aware of your thoughts. Now, I do a really basic idea of learning to be aware of your thoughts in the first book. And for those of you guys that don't know this, if you're new to following me, Embodied Grace, A Woman's Path to Empowerment, you can get it free in my Facebook group. So go to the Facebook group. If you haven't done it, you can download it for free. I even have a free 10-day challenge and a 30-day program that you can do that's totally free, okay? So again, find out about that in the Facebook group, because that actually learning to be aware of your thoughts comes way back to the beginning with the boundaries and things. But then we come to a new level of understanding the awareness about our thoughts and learning to really understand that what we think creates what we have in our life. Okay. In that part, when you start becoming aware of your thoughts, you'll see how connected those are to the emotions. And when you see how your emotions work and how they process through your body, that's when you're like, that's where you start, again, the next step of awakening, that next up level of understanding what's going on, right? So when you see how emotions work and how to process them through your body, how they affect your body, where they might be getting stuck in your body, right? That's, again, that's that next level of healing. You start being like, okay, what of these emotions are repetitive? What can I heal? How can I think about this differently so that the emotional reaction isn't the same, right? Then what will happen is you'll begin to learn to start detaching. And again, you guys, this is like, this could be a natural thing, like a natural awakening process for you specifically, but there's no reason to do it alone because there's so many spiritual teachers out there. And again, like I said, a lot of my stuff is free because I just want people to be able to awaken and not be afraid. Like for me, it's the whole Christian psychic thing, right? Being afraid of my gifts. But again, once you learn to, for me, to detach from that paradigm of thinking that that's a bad thing and truly following my own divine guidance, trusting that God has my back, then you're able to understand it from a different level. And if you're listening to this message, somehow, some way, you've been guided to it, whether you know it or not, because we're all divinely guided and we all find what we need to find in divine timing. So just trust that. Okay. So again, back to the emotions, when you learn how to process those and work through your body, you actually learn how to detach a little bit. And then you can be like, okay, well, is this my thought or did I accept this somewhere? How did this become part of my paradigm, programs, or patterns, right? So you can really have that space of, okay, I'm going to just take a step back from this and I'm going to learn, is this mine, right? And again, these are all things that are kind of sprinkled all throughout the process, or through your awakening. But I just wanted to kind of hit on where they are the most impactful, really. So then once you do that, you come back to the idea of bubbling your energy, right? Because then you can bubble your energy in a whole new way, and it's going to help you bubble in a way that now you become like a gauge where you can start discerning truth. So when you get to that point, then you're like, okay, now I'm understanding that I have the power within me to trust my guides and my angels and trust that God has my back. And now I can start discerning truth for myself. Okay. This will help you start bridging the gap and really begin to distance from any darkness, because you're like, wait a minute, now that I see that that's a vibrational state, I can actually discern and now not choose anything that aligns into that lower vibration. Okay. Once you start learning to work with discernment, then you'll understand there's really no need for fear, because God is love and God is truth. And if love is the truth, there's no need for fear. Okay. And this is, again, you guys, part of the spiritual awakening. So don't try to rush through anything. Just trust whatever part of the process you're in, and also know that it's like cyclical. Like you will learn a little bit at a time, and then you'll find yourself coming all the way back through and kind of learning a new level of everything. So it's almost like a spiral staircase. And so like you start at the beginning where you're just learning your boundaries, you're understanding codependency, you're learning to bubble, and you stop blaming others, and then you step into your own spiritual work, and then you reconnect with your soul. And as you go up the spiral staircase, you'll come back to a new level of boundaries and a new level of understanding codependency, and you'll start stepping into more spiritual work, and you'll reconnect to your soul even more, and you'll heal even more, and you'll understand even more. And as you go up the spiral staircase, you learn more and more and more. And as you go through this spiral staircase, kind of gradually making your way up, you start strengthening your own light. Okay, that is when you start really anchoring in your divine truth, to where you really understand that you have that God spark within you, and that now you can start to shine your light out for others. And the more you strengthen and the more you own that light within you, the easier it's going to be moving forward. And that's where you're really stepping more and more into awakening. So then what will happen is eventually you'll get to the point where you've anchored in so much light that you can not only bring in that bubble, but you can actually step out and make that bubble expand. And you know that you don't have to judge anything with where you're at. You can literally encompass all of it without judging. And so instead of being like in this dome or this bubble of light, you begin to just radiate light all the way around you. And so it's within this awakening comes the expansion, right? And expanding the light is where you really truly start to shine. Okay. And again, you guys, when you are in that space, you'll learn throughout this, the discernment comes in, the understanding boundaries come in, your spiritual work comes in, your spiritual understanding comes, and you'll get to the point where you understand you don't have to judge anything. When you get to there, this is where we circle back to what I said in the very beginning. You'll understand in that point that everything is a vibrational state of being. Okay. So again, coming back to that, this is all of this is the process of awakening, and everybody's going to experience it in a little different ways. You may not experience it all in exactly the order I laid out. It may be you do something on that I said last first, and then you do what I said first last. It doesn't matter which way you do that, but within your spiritual journey, you will probably hit some or all of those things that I just spoke about. Okay. And through this process of awakening, I want to explain to you, don't rush it. Allow yourself to integrate everything you learn. Because if you jump in and you're like, I'm going to change everything right now today, you literally won't be able to anchor it in. It'll be too much too fast. Okay. And my guides are even saying that's why some of the things that we've been talking about for the last few years, like for about 3 years ago, everybody was like, okay, there's going to be this great wave and this big event, right? The great event was going to happen, and it was going to be the awakening. And I almost feel like that's why I can't get anything even beyond, like right now we know that there's something big happening and we know that some big changes are going to happen, but my guides won't show me. I know on the other side of all of this, it's going to be beautiful. Life will get back to being, as a whole, out in the community and everything, life will get back to being beautiful. I'll be totally honest. My life hasn't changed that much due to all of this stuff going on. Like everything is still pretty much the same. And I feel like I'm watching it all on TV, which the only time I see what's happening is when I watch the news, which I don't do very often. I check in once or twice a week just to see what's going on in the world. But I know that my life is my vibrational state of being. So what I'm focusing on is what is going to be showing up in my life, right? So focus on good, focus on things that make you happy. It's not that you're doing it from a way where you're not acknowledging anything that's going on, but you can acknowledge what's going on in the world and not align with it. You can acknowledge what's going on in the world and not match the vibrational state of it. Okay. So again, you guys, as you go through your process of awakening, just know to trust the process, know to take it slow, know that every time you have that aha moment or that next up level, allow it to really integrate into your body, integrate into your being, integrate it into the light that you carry so that you can hold it. Because if you try to rush the process, you won't actually anchor anything in. And so you'll have to redo everything. Like you'll end up finding yourself stuck in the same pattern. And you'll be like, well, I thought I already healed this. Why is it coming back? Because you didn't let it integrate. Okay. So again, there's no rush. Everything happens in divine timing. Your guides and angels are here for you, willing and ready to work with you. And the overall lesson is to learn that everything is a vibrational state of being. But you also have to go through these things that I've talked about. You have to go through the quote unquote hard stuff, the healing, the forgiveness work, the understanding, being aware of your thoughts. All of the things that I talked about on this audio are things that you will go through. And if you can embrace the experience of it, and if you can embody the grace as you move through it, it will be so much easier. And the process of awakening can be beautiful, even when the yucky things come up for healing. Okay. So again, you guys, just to close it out, as you go through all of that process of awakening, you'll find yourself back at understanding everything is a vibrational state of being. So what you focus on and where your vibrational state is what you're going to create in the world. Now, as you go through the healing, you don't have to create more of the yuck, because you're doing that from an almost detached state, going, okay, I see this, so I'm going to heal it. So you go into it for a minute. You're like, okay, I'm going to stop manifesting for a minute. I'm going to go in and do my healing. And then when I come back, I'm not going to lose ground, right? I'm going to still be on the process of awakening, moving forward, moving up the scale, moving to a higher level, like however you want to explain raising your vibration, which is what we call ascension, right? So sending you guys lots of love. I hope this makes sense. Again, remember, if you're on my Patreon channel, ask me any questions that you have about this. If you guys are on if you're in Facebook, go to the Facebook group and join it. It's Embodied Grace Community. And I'm sending you guys lots of love, and I will talk to everybody soon.